Want to transform your life? Let's discover the quotes that transform mine. Are you struggling to stay motivated? Let's have a look at the power of words and those quotes that you may have seen, how they can bring and help you transform your life. Welcome to Life by 8, your blueprint for living the most extraordinary life. I am Rebecca Grugan, your life architect on this journey to designing your ultimate life. If you are ready to level up using values levels, understanding yourself with the energetic blueprint, our 8 pillars to human wellness framework, this is for you. You are in the right place, so let's go. So this episode, it is a bit about my all-time favorite life and motivational quotes and words, and also potentially me rambling on about some really cool stuff that may be helpful to you and answer a number of the questions that some of our community members have sent in that they'd like me to speak about. So that is today's episode. I am Rebecca Grugan. And in this episode, we're diving into something that I believe has the power to change your mindset in the most profound ways. And that is with words. These are the words that have stayed with me and lifted me up and guided me through the ups and the downs. And so whether you're looking for a spark of inspiration or something to ground you in challenging times, stick around as I share my all-time favorite quotes, well, some of them, and what they've meant to me. And so the first quote that has shaped my life in so many ways is that you are the creator of your own reality. This simple yet profound truth has been a guiding principle for me. I'm a firm believer that we have more control over our lives than we sometimes give ourselves credit for. As somebody who moved out of home at 16, at 15, I had told my mum that if we're still where we were at 16, I was going to move out. And I did. And so from a very young age, I have known that I am the creator. I don't have to be passive. I don't just have to consume or accept what's given to me. I get to create the reality in which I live in. You see, we might not control what happens to us, but we can always control how we respond. And this is where the magic lies, in realizing that we are not victims of circumstance, but architects of our future. So I remember a time and another time when I felt stuck. I was in a relationship and he had asked me to marry him in front of everybody. His dad was a pastor, like church and all these sort of things. And so I did not want to say yes, but I did. And I felt stuck. It didn't align with me. I didn't really want to be in that relationship. And it was easy to feel like life was happening to me. But by embracing this quote, it pushed me to take action, to make changes, and ultimately to create a reality that was a reflection of my true self. And so I got out of that relationship by firstly, he cheated, I was so excited about. I can remember myself doing the groceries with my older sister. And I was like, I'm so excited he's cheated on me. She's like, what? And I said, I've never been so happy in my life, because it gave me this reason. As I was 19, it gave me a reason to be able to get out. And though I, for most of my life, have not wanted to be seen as weak or to not be a victim. And I know that if I don't make a choice, if I don't make a decision, then I will continually be somebody who is at the mercy of whatever's happening around me instead of being the creator. And so another quote that has stood the test of time for me is from Tony Robbins. And it's, change is inevitable, but progress is optional. I know, right? Think about it. We're constantly evolving and the world around us is in a state of flux. But just because change is happening, it doesn't mean we're growing. You see, progress is intentional. You have to choose to grow, to learn, and to move forward. I used to fear change, thinking that the goal was stability, get the husband, get the children, get the house, and just get the job and like it and be stable. But when I embraced this quote, it shifted my perspective. I realized that change is part of life's process, but how I respond to it determines whether I'm moving forward or staying stagnant. You see, if I had stayed when I was 16 in the same space and place I knew that I wouldn't grow. And on reflection, that is not anything detrimental or negative to say about my family at the time, but I knew. And at 38, at the time of this recording, I can look back and see the moments in which I actually chose change. There was a lot of chaos in my childhood and change would happen all the time. I would move houses what feel like every 6 months. And I felt like I never unpacked, and it was like you could never have stability, which is why I think I craved it so much. But it's actually the power in that change to step into it that I actually got progress and growth. Another one of my absolute favorite quotes is, "Do it anyway." Fear can be paralyzing. I've been there. But this quote reminds me that action in the face of fear is what leads to growth. I've experienced this time and time again in my own life, from launching new businesses and projects to standing in front of a crowd to speak, whether that's a crowd of 50 or 2,000 or running an event for 10,000 people. The fear, it never truly goes away, but the key is to take action anyway. And so I remember the first time I gave a major presentation. I was nervous beyond belief, but instead of waiting for the fear to disappear, I leaned in to it. You know what? That experience gave me more confidence than any amount of preparation could have. Doing it anyway, doing it scared, led to immense growth. And here's one that hits hard. Whenever I share it, it's usually the one that comes up. No one is coming to save you. This is a tough pill to swallow, but it is one of the most empowering truths. We often wait for someone or something to rescue us from our problems, whether it's a mentor, a partner, or some external event. So many movies that we watch as children growing up, especially if you're female, we are waiting for the knight in shining armor, for the person who's coming to save us from the tower. But the truth is, the person who has the power to change your life is you. You are your own hero. There was a time in my life when I was waiting for the right moment or the right person to come along. I wanted that person to give me the validation or the opportunity I thought I needed. As somebody who didn't know her father growing up and whose stepfather ended up in jail, this validation was that I was looking for or searching for or wanting was from men. And I thought that they would give me the opportunity that I thought I needed. But when I realized that no one was going to save me, that was the moment I stepped into my power and I began to create the life I actually wanted. Another favorite quote: "Life is not about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself." I actually have this on a coffee mug. This speaks to the idea that we're not here to passively discover who we are, but to actively shape and mold ourselves. We want to mold ourselves into the person we want to be. It's about taking ownership and responsibility for your own growth and your own evolution. It's on you to do that. So I used to believe that I had to find myself, like it was some hidden treasure that I'd magically appear. But the more I engaged with life and the more books I read and the more people that I met, I remember meeting this lady down the road at the beach at Raby Bay, and we ended up having a conversation and we jumped on Zoom a few weeks later just to catch up. And she said these words to me and she says, "You know, you're not broken, right?" And I cried and I cried and I cried, because the thing is that we're not finding ourselves. We're not something that needs to be fixed. We are creation. We are creating the person, the human, the self of who we're going to be. And as I embraced this more and more, I realized that who I am is actually a result of all of the choices I make, every single one of them, the experiences that I have, that I choose, and that happen for me. And more importantly, in the actions that I take. See, this shift in thinking, it helped me approach life with a sense of agency, a sense of creativity. I could create and dream and imagine and do and be anything that I wanted to be. And it may seem like I've had a million different lives in one, and I have. Because this is the thing, right? When you tap into your creativity, you create you. Nobody else can do that. The next quote is from Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. This one, it resonates deeply with me, especially in the work I do in coaching and education. It's not about what you teach someone. It's about how you make them feel about themselves and their potential. And I know we talk about nobody can make us feel a certain way and somebody chooses how they feel, but you have a responsibility as a coach, teacher, educator, mentor, parent to create a space where in your teaching, that person gets to feel safe to be themselves. Not only to be themselves, but to see a version of themselves reaching that potential and the belief that you have in them, maybe before they even know it. And so there are so many experiences that I have around this, so many stories I could share. But in my coaching practice, I always remind myself that it is less about giving advice and more about creating an environment where someone feels heard, seen, empowered. And this quote drives home the importance of that connection, of that compassion, designing the places, the spaces, the experiences for people to feel. That is where the impact is. Because you can say all the things on surface level, but when somebody's energy is around yours or in a place where yours is, it's not the things that you're teaching or saying. It's going to be the feeling. And so are you actually embodied in your practice? Is this an intention that you're setting? Because if it's not, maybe it's time to start, because it will impact and it will change the trajectory of your business, your life, but your relationships around you. And I don't want to forget this important one. There is no failure, only feedback. Yes, this is an NLP presupposition that I absolutely live by. So often we are afraid to fail because we're taught that failure is final, right? I was at this training the other week and one of the guys was talking about the AFL, which is Australian football here in Australia. And he was talking about how it was 8 stories to 1, 8 to 1. So, the winner up into the finals, into the grand final. And so, if we don't win the game, we fail. So if we lose, then it's failure. And he was talking about how you can question that. Like, is it actually, you might have lost, i.e. the competition, but is it actually failure? Because a lot of people, and if you've watched Ted Lasso, the show, incredible show, by the way, there is a lesson in everything. And even though you may see it or society thinks it's a failure, you can just look at it as feedback, a lesson in disguise, helping you course correct towards success or to shift something so that it can be better next time. Failure doesn't have to be what society says it is. And so I wonder where in your life you're holding yourself back because you're scared of failure. But what if you just started to see that everything is just feedback? What would that mean for you? What actions would you take? Because I've faced moments where things didn't go as planned, whether it's been a business venture or partnership that didn't take off or a personal goal that it seemed really out of reach. But when I look at it as feedback rather than failure, I get to extract the lessons and I get to use them to propel myself forward. And another favorite of mine is, you can't pour from an empty cup. This is such an important reminder to take care of yourself, to take care of yourself first. The oxygen mask in the plane, yes, that scenario. Whether you're in a relationship or you're running a business or you're raising kids, you can't give your best to others if you are running on empty. Self-care isn't selfish. I've said this for the last 10 years. Parents, mothers especially, women especially, you don't have to be like a teenager who just got their license and put $10 of petrol in at a time. Learn how to fill the tank. You deserve it. And when you do that, you can go faster, you can go longer, you can get to the destination and get to the things that you want instead of having to almost run out and then go a little bit again, a little bit again, a little bit again. It's not selfish. Look after you. Put the oxygen mask on you first, and you will serve everybody and everything in a greater scale than you can possibly believe. I've had those million lives, right? And so there was a time when I was juggling so many roles and I felt like I was burning out. And this is around sort of that 18 to 20, 23-ish years of mine when lots happened, but I was also in this hustle culture because I thought that women were weak, stories I was telling myself at the time. But I was a young female in business. And so I was at the table with CEOs who are male and in front row at Fashion Week and at MTV Awards, all these sort of things with Fashion Weekly. And I thought that I had to keep hustling, keep striving, keep working, being in the doing. And I wasn't showing up as my best self for anyone. Most importantly, myself. And that's when I really leaned into this quote and I made self-care a priority. I am so fortunate and love the fact that I was able to do this before having children. It wasn't something I had to learn later, nor did I ever have to get to a point of true burnout. Because I make this a priority. Because it transformed not only my own energy levels, but my relationships and the quality of my work. And lastly, when we come to these quotes, this is a quote that's very dear to me because what you focus on expands. Where you put your attention is what grows in your life. If you focus on problems, speak into your problems, they'll seem bigger. But if you focus on solutions, you'll start seeing opportunities where you didn't before. And this is a mindset shift that changes everything. And I've spoken previously about when I moved out of home at 16. When I said, if we're still here at 16, I'm moving out. I want to go deeper into why. Because I knew that if my environmental pillar, if where I was living, was surrounded by negativity, people speaking horribly about themselves and each other, if I stayed in that environment, that I would become that. Because it is completely true. What we are exposed to, what we focus our attention on. And as a 15-year-old, I went to school and I went home. I went to work, and so much of my experience of the adults around me were people who spoke about the problems, about the negativity. And so I decided when I had that conversation with Mum, if we're still here, because at 16 at the time you could become independent through with the government and those sort of things. I could enroll myself in high school. And we were still there. And so I stuck my word to it. And even though it might seem crazy that at that age I moved interstate, it was all with intention because I knew that what I focused on is what was going to come to fruition. And every time that I've done this, because each transition, if we talk about values levels, each transition of values levels, you'll get to points where you're like focusing on the things that are away from drivers. You know, I don't want this. I don't want that. And then you start getting the things that you don't want. This is why your words create your reality. But the focus, sometimes you have to come back to what are you focusing on and how is it or isn't it serving you? And so what are you focusing on? Because when I shifted my focus from the problems and from the obstacles to the opportunities, everything changed in my life. Everything changed in my business. Instead of seeing challenges as roadblocks, I started seeing them as stepping stones. And that mindset has been an absolute game changer. And so these words, since a very young age, I have saved words from magazines and cut them out and put them in the old scrapbooks that we used to have as kids. When Pinterest first launched, I was obsessed. I have boards full of quotes, full of quotes everywhere. We would get books when I was young and magazines, and I would cut them out and they would be all on my wall. I remember when I started Fashion Weekly, I was 18, in my office, my entire 2 walls from roof to floor full of quotes, because it's the power of words. And I believe that this is what makes me such an incredible NLP trainer, is because I see and can make sense of how your words create your reality. And so I wonder, what quotes do you live by? What do you love? What's changed your life? And can you share them with me? Because I love them. I love hearing from people and I love learning new things. And I learned so much from things like quotes. And so as I finish off sharing my favorite quotes and start to wrap up, I want to talk about the power of storytelling. If we understand that quotes are going to have an impact on us, and we can understand that the fairy tales that we grew up with and the movies that we watched impacted us in certain ways, then the stories we tell ourselves and then our ability to tell stories to others, can you imagine the impact that that's having on the people around you? But those stories that you're telling yourself, those ones, they are the most potent. And so how are you telling your stories? How are you speaking about yourself to yourself? What are you focusing on? What is the vibration of the words you're using? Do you understand the words that you're saying? Do you have conscious awareness of these stories? Because you see, every day you get to wake up, you are writing the next page, the next chapter, the next moment. And so, is it a story that people want to read? Is it a story that you're proud of writing? Because it's what you're doing, whether you like it or not. You are writing your own story. And out of every story you could ever tell in your whole life, the one that you are telling yourself is the one that you die with. That one story. From birth to death, from your first day, from the first page, all the way to the last, does that story make you excited? Does that story make you want to write it again and again? And so the power of words, quotes, what you expose yourself to, what you focus on. I've shared these words today and the power of storytelling because they aren't just words, they're mantras that have carried me through difficult times and pushed me to grow and to tell better stories. Stories that I want to read, that I'm proud to read, and therefore proud to share with my own children, proud to share with anybody who it benefits. And I encourage you to find the quotes and the words and the mantras that resonate with you and hold on to them and let them guide you, especially when life feels overwhelming. As I said earlier, share anything, any quotes that you've got, favorites of your own, share them with me on socials, in my DMs, by email. You can connect with me in multiple different ways. But remember, you are the creator of your reality. So go out there and build the life that you deserve.